So, it continues. Hello there, welcome back to Max's Writing Advice Q&A. In tonight's episode, I have a selection of questions sent by viewers just like you and picked through a random number generator every week. Questions that you leave in the comments down below do actually get really quick answers sent by me, as well as being added to the list for the questions that may be featured in a future episode. Did your question get in this week? Only one way to find out. Before I go on anywhere though, allow me to remind you as always that the following is merely just my advice, my opinion, and what works for me. Don't take it as gospel, instead take it as the ramblings of a silly person who looks a little bit, or rather precisely like this. Let's take it from the top. I'm ready, you're ready, let's do this. The first question of the day goes a little bit, or rather precisely like this. I have this story that's supposed to be a slice of life, no world saving or huge issues like that, and it's been going rather well, but recently I realized I should be writing it in first person rather than third. I am sure you've probably talked about this before, but do you have any tips for how to change it? Should I just continue in the new POV and go back to fix it later, or should I go back and change it now? I have documented my thoughts on this question or subject previously, but I will give you a refresher. My thoughts on this subject are as follows. I think that if you just got started with the story, if you are a couple of chapters in, or a handful of scenes in, I think you can go back and revise those or rewrite those to fit with the new POV or tense, whatever it is you're changing, only if you are a little bit in. That being said, if you are deeper in the story than just a couple of chapters or a handful of scenes, I say just keep going. Why? Well, because there comes a point, especially if you're in the middle of a book, nothing will kill your momentum in the middle of writing a book like going back and revising all of it. That's not effective. Honestly, only if you've just got started and you realize, oh crap, I should probably go back. I say go back and fix it, or just keep going. Ultimately though, like, if you're uncertain, just keep going. I like that you, almost said my very own words. I say, unless, if you're uncertain at all, just keep writing and fix it later. Generally, when I get questions like this, people are uncertain as to what is the best course of action. What would be more work for you later down the line? And the reality is this. Is it going to be hard to revise this story and have to fix the tense or POV as well as editing? Yeah. But I don't think it's anywhere near as hard as doing that now and then having to revise the story again later. You're already gonna revise the story, so I don't particularly think that you're in any sort of hurry. Now, the second question of today's video, the centerpiece for this video, is quite a long one. I have actually summarized the question, which may or may not be to its detriment, because there's a lot of personal information that I had to cut. I'm gonna probably go long on this one. It's most likely that I will go long on this one, but the following question has been summarized, because I got like 5 messages on Tumblr just for this one question, and I think there's like a 500 character limit, so it's a long one. I've summarized it. I apologize if that's not the most effective, but I had to make cuts here and there. Let's take it from the top. I find it hard to come up with ideas for stories. I just seem unable to get inside a character's head. Do you have any advice for how to get to know them? Or ways to make it easier to come up with ideas for stories? 3 minutes on the clock. I'm probably gonna go long, honestly, but get set, go. My first point, really quickly, because people send me questions and I don't know for how long they've been following me, or if they only follow me on one platform or over the other. If you're new, or if you haven't already, please check out my guide for how to plan a novel. It's the first video on my channel. It's literally on the main menu. Every time you go to youtube.com/MrKirin, it's right there. How to plan a novel from the ground up. The thumbnail is green and black. It's super evident. Go watch that video. It's a 1-hour workshop where I talk about my entire novel planning process, how I come up with ideas, how I brainstorm my characters, and so forth. I know that I tell people, and they're like, nah, but that's okay, you don't have to, but I recommend, because I've packed that video with so much of my advice over the last couple of years, because that's not the first version of my planning guide, it's like the third version, and I got that over like 5 years of, not perfecting, because it's not perfect, but making my novel planning process way more effective. I recommend you go watch it. It may help you if you haven't already tried it. Now, because that takes care of the how to come up with stories, how to make better stories, how to get, closer to your story part of the question. That's out. Now, How do we get inside a character's head? Especially, and you didn't get this because you didn't read all those 5 messages on Tumblr, 6 messages, but the question that dealt a lot with the person feeling as though the characters were not letting them in, or were pushing them out. And it's this feeling of like you're trying to write this character, but they're not sharing anything about themselves, and they're not giving you any information, anything for you to play with. And I understand where that feeling comes from. I haven't felt it in a long while, mostly because of the changes that I've made to my own person, but I want to talk about them in a moment. But my feelings are as follows. And this wasn't explained in the question, so I'm going to take a leap of faith, but is your story written in first person or third person? Because, and this may sound like a complete nothing point, and I apologize, but writing a story from first person pretty much forces you to get inside a person's head. It may not be easy, it may be complicated, but it's a surefire way to just get inside of a person's head. That being said, the other thing that I have to say really quickly is that I want to inspire you to, if you write first person from a point of view that is completely new and you feel difficulty, you feel that it is hard to express your thoughts through their point of view, keep going. Don't stop just because it got hard. Keep going. It takes a while. And I've said this in the past, I'm gonna say it again. Every time I revise a book, no matter if it's a novella or a big novel, most of the work of the revision goes into the first third of the story. You know why? Because it takes me about a third of a story to get used to a character's shoes, to getting used to walking in their shoes, to being inside their head. It takes a while. You don't just start on page 1 and like know immediately who they are and you're already like in-tuned or drift compatible if you want a Pacific Rim reference. It takes a while. It takes a long while. For me, it takes a third of the book. No matter how long it is, it's always about a third of the book. If I was a much more braver person, I would probably share the original rough draft of my books, and then you would see, oh damn, Lucian was nothing alike. Well, it took me like a third of the book to realize who Lucian was, referring to Raven's Gem, of course. So my first point, of course, with that question would be try writing them in first person from their own point of view and push forward. I know that it can feel incredibly daunting when you're trying to write and you feel as though things are not working out, but honestly, real talk, I think it's entirely likely, I would say like 90% of your worries are from you self-doubting yourself or feeling as though your writing is not just competent or is incompetent. Honestly, real talk, most of those worries are your fears and doubts taking form, and generally, in this case, the form of your characters. Keep going, you'll get used to those shoes, I promise. That being said, if you would like a particular exercise, I recommend you considering write a prologue story, a story that takes place before the actual story you want to write, and write from that character point of view or the point of view of a character you would like to learn more about. Write a little story about them. You don't even have to share it with the world. You may want to, but write it. Get used to their shoes if you would like. This may actually completely help you. Write a little bit. Completely not serious, completely unrelated to the story. Just give yourself the chance to get used to their shoes, okay? So there's a lot more that I want to talk about. So the other big point is that I have found over my journeys as a writer that writing is ultimately the act of discovery. And my writing experience has been mostly just taking all the things that I was taught by English teachers in high school, and my first semester in college, my writing professor was not very good, but taking all the stuff that they taught me and disarming it, because there's a lot of misconceptions. A lot of young people are taught that primarily through the analysis of fiction, or they're told that the authors of the books that you like knew everything about that world and everything about that story long before they sat down to write it, and that's not true. Of course, it's not true. I would like to inspire you to go look up the memoirs of your favorite authors, or go look up their blog posts, and you will learn that pretty much everyone agrees the story that you enjoy, the story that you love, wasn't there on the first draft. It didn't exist. It took form through the act of revision. Now, why does this have to do with the point at hand? Well, the connection here is that I found that writing for me has been about letting go of control, experiencing the story, writing it almost recklessly, disabling those self-doubts, those voices of doubt and fear in the back of your head, and just pushing through, because you are on the right path. You're doing the right thing. You don't have to have all of the answers. You can revise this. You can make it perfect later. That's the power of writing. Again, to our dear writerly friend dealing with this, I recommend you jump in, write again and push through. You don't have to have all of the answers. You don't need to know what your characters want. You don't need to know who their enemy is, if they even have enemies. It would help to know these things, but you don't have to. You don't have to know. You can figure it out later, and through the active revision, make things work out for you. I'm always like surprised when people don't talk about revision or how useful it is. People kind of like shy from talking about it. And in my experience in college, I found that a lot of writers didn't talk about revision because, and I assume this is how they felt, that revising your story means that you're not a good writer because you didn't make it good from the beginning. And that's just like such like, I don't want to be obscene here. I don't know, that just seems so like backwards and so like egotistical. Like it's not about making a good story for these people, it's just about looking cool and awesome and, oh look, I wrote this story without revising. Totally. I've gone on way too long, but there's one more thing I want to say for anyone out there who feels uncertain. Revision is at its core probably the most important part of the entire writing process. It is the process through which the real story that you have comes into the foreground, and to not use it, to not rely upon it, to not make use of it, I feel like that is like a painter who decides to not use brushes and just instead paint with their fingers. Seriously. Revision is there for you. It's there for you. It's a part of the process. Don't be ashamed. You don't need to know. You don't have to make it perfect right now. You can make it perfect later. With that serious question or an answer out of the way, let's tackle a different question. I think this is the very last question that made it into the cut for this video before I rolled the dice. I think it was. You got lucky. This question goes a little bit like this. Hey Max, I always have an issue writing gaps in time. For example, my character wakes up in the morning, finds out that she has to meet her father for dinner, and then has a very boring day spent reading and worrying about the dinner. I don't want to get too stream of consciousness on my chapter, but I have had a hard time cutting out chunks of dead time smoothly. What can I do? I hope that you all like my second answer, because I'm about to just speak utter heresy right now. 3 minutes on the clock, get set, go! I said go. Oh, this timer sucks! Okay, go! I have a background in film. I studied film in high school. And I'm not saying this in a pretentious way. I'm not saying this to show you how cool I am. I'm saying this because I realized over my period of interacting with other people that some of the skills and some of the way that I did things came from film. Now, how does film tackle skipping forward in time? Good old cuts. Cut to black. This is why I have to be entirely honest. This issue is hard for me to talk about because I have internalized a solution for it. Cut! And I know that the following is going to be complete and absolute heresy, and I understand. There's a lot of people who, you know, don't like to look at other mediums for advice, opportunities, maybe ways to do things. That's okay. Everyone does their things differently. You tuned in to know what I have to say, and what I have to say is that I like to look at film as a way of analyzing effective and ineffective pacing. The point at which scenes cut, whether it is too early, too late, how is the action shown to the character, whether it is combat, violence, or romance. I would like to inspire you to look at film, or television. I guess television works as well. Look at film and look at how an effective scene is spaced, where it ends, where it begins. Not particularly how things unfold, but when exactly do you cut to move over to the next point in the story. Now you may be saying, Max, this is all nice and fine and dandy. How can I apply this to my writing? I think, honestly, and this has been my advice forever, if a scene is not fun to write and it's not actually doing anything for you, you don't have to share it with the reader. You can skip forward. You don't have to show the reader every moment of your character's life. Now. How do you actually show this on the page? How do you actually make this work? And I don't know if this is just an American thing or only certain people do this, but I am a big fan of the good old 3 to 5 asterisks on the center of the page as a way to indicate a jump in time. You must have seen this in a book somewhere, right? I think this is like the universal way to tell the reader, hey, that scene that you just read and the next scene or chapter or whatever, there is a skip in time between them. Another much more organic way to do this is also just chapter breaks. It does seem a little, I don't want to say silly, it seems a little unorthodox to just have like a chapter break every time you want to just skip forward in time. That's why the good old 3 to 5 asterisks on the middle of the page centered. And I was actually gonna cut it right here, but then I remember one more thing, and that is, In film, it would be called the montage. You don't have to just cut forward. You don't have to just cut to the next scene. You can give us a nice paragraph, a couple paragraphs of summary, like walking us through the last hours of the character's life or what they've been doing, you know? The character worried, and then you can just have a nice paragraph of summary of her just thinking about all the things that are gonna happen, how bad it could go, and the next thing you know, she finds herself at the dinner. Not so long ago, I made a video on showing versus telling, and I talk a lot about how to use telling effectively to summarize events that happen between one scene and the next. This may help you. But anyhow, that's pretty much all I have to say. Make use of the tools within the writing to show skips forward in time, and honestly, you don't have to show the reader everything. There's probably an English teacher out there that told you against that, but I can tell you right now, you don't have to show the reader everything. You can just cut, I don't want to say to the exciting things, but to the things that are relevant to the story, or more importantly, relevant to the character themselves, to what they feel, to what they want, to what is going on in their life. But anyhow, I've gone on way too long. I hope that you enjoyed the answers to today's videos, or if anything, I showed you another point of view. If you would like to share your own point of view on the questions that were answered today, feel free to leave them down in the comments below, as well as questions for future videos. And one more thing before I go, of course, as always, if you would like to make sure that I can continue to make the content that you enjoy, please consider supporting the channel. You can pledge to my Patreon page and earn awesome perks like getting to watch my videos early or getting copies of my books early as well. Or if Patreon is not your cup of tea, how about a cup of coffee? Link in the description down below. All of this stuff just goes to enabling me to doing more of these videos, so again, thank you. For the time being, I want to thank you for watching, thank you for spending a little bit of your day with me, and I'll see you on the next one!